Good evening and welcome to the public meeting of the Halton District School Board for Wednesday, June the 19th, 2019. This is the last regular board meeting for the 2018-2019 school year. At this moment, I'd like to remind everyone that this meeting is video voice recorded and live streamed from the hdsb.ca website. I would also like to ask that you turn any devices you have to silent mode. I'm just doing that just in case myself. Okay, so this evening, Trustee Oliver is not at the meeting, and Trustee Shuttleworth will be joining us a little bit later, and Trustee Collard is away as well. This evening, all superintendents are in the room this evening, yes. This evening, Trustee Amos will be honoring the land.
Halton, as we know it today, is rich in history and modern traditions of many First Nations and the Métis. From the Anishinaabe to the Adirondack, the Haudenosaunee, and the Métis, these lands surrounding the Great Lakes are steeped in Indigenous history. As we gather today on these treaty lands, we have the responsibility to honor and respect the four directions: land, water, plants, animals, ancestors that walked before us, and all the wonderful elements of creation that exist. We would like to acknowledge and thank the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation for sharing their traditional territory with us.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of possible conflict of interest this evening? Seeing none. Next, we are up to the agenda. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda? Thank you, Trustee Gray. Seconded by Trustee Amos. Thank you. Is there any discussion at all about the agenda this evening? Seeing none. Okay. All those in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, so we are up to our Inspire Awards. Everyone in the Halton District School Board community can nominate or be nominated: families, neighbors, related organizations, staff, students, and school volunteers. The Inspire Award is given to an individual or group that is formally or informally associated with the Halton District School Board who support our students and their achievements through exemplary caring, initiative, innovation, and creativity. Award recipients choose where they would like to receive their award, and this evening we have 4 Inspire Award presentations. I would like to first call up Okay, we're going to switch that around for a moment. We're going to actually switch to the second one because actually we're going to go to the third one because I'm noticing that Trustee Shuttleworth should be presenting the first 2 awards, and she's not in the room right now. So we are going to go to the third one, which is Rob Best and Mina Sahai. If you could come forward, as well as Trustee Amos. Oh, Trustee Rochelle. Sorry, I have last year's boundaries in my head. Okay, Rob Best is the council chair for Oakville Trafalgar High School, and Mina Sahai is the school's principal. These two have worked together for the past several years and have both grown to be great leaders. Rob dedicates copious amounts of time to supporting the school council and improving the school, ensuring all criteria is met for the council to move forward in any situation. Parents and staff are grateful for Rob's input, dedication, and commitment. Mina works diligently to keep students a priority at all times and ensures the parent community is always well informed. Parents appreciate Mina's transparency, dedication, and tremendous effort to keep them in the loop. Congratulations. Okay, so we're going to go down to the fourth one, which may I please have Trustee Garrett's come forward and Donna Greer, please. Donna is a library technician at Viola Desmond Public School. Donna has been instrumental in the opening of the Viola Desmond Library this past year. She goes above and beyond to ensure as many books as possible are available on the shelves to students to encourage a love of literacy and reading. Donna approaches each day with a positive attitude and connects warmly with both students and staff. Staff say it's always a better day when Donna is there. She is a supportive, caring, and dedicated member of the school team. Congratulations. Okay, in light of the fact that Trustee Shuttleworth is not here, ViceChair Harrison will do the reading and I will be presenting. So.
Okay, Chair Gerbens, I would invite you to the front to present some great awards here. Tracy Bernier, come on up. So Tracy is the teacher librarian at Ryerson Public School. She's made the school library a colorful, creative, welcoming, and inviting environment where students look forward to spending time. She makes story time with students an animated and engaging experience, which inspires all students in their love of reading. Tracy works diligently to make the library a welcoming and open space for everyone. All students at Ryerson know Tracy for her kind and enthusiastic demeanor. Her programs and services are loved by everyone, and she brings many impactful initiatives to Ryerson. She works with students every day, teaching them reading, inquiry, art, and also new technologies. Tracy always has a kind smile, which we've seen here tonight. There it is. And a constant cheerfulness about her, which immediately puts people at ease. I feel very at ease. And congratulations and thank you for everything. Okay, Chair Gerbens, don't run away. Excellent. Okay, I would also like to invite up Lauren Eccles from Tecumseh Public School. Lauren, did I say your last name correctly? Awesome. Lauren Eccles. So Lauren is a teacher at Tecumseh Public School who goes above and beyond to ensure students feel welcome and appreciated. She plans field trips, in-class workshops, organizes the track and field team, cross-country, basketball, dance team, primary intramural sports, staff social committee, school-wide Zumba events, and more. Wow. Wow. Staff, parents, and students appreciate Lauren's compassion and dedication to her students. Lauren believes strongly in building her students' self-esteem and works hard to encourage and to motivate them. And with such a range of things that you're doing, I can see how many would be motivated. Thank you so much and congratulations.
Probably easily. I'll go to the back.
Okay, very good. Now we need to switch it on both ends and come closer for pictures. Come on, yes, come on in.
Bob, you don't have a camera or what?
And flavor, lots of flavor. I'm so glad.
Okay. The following Inspire Award winners have chosen to receive their awards at a location of their choice. So Danielle Ferguson is a parent with Falgarwood Public School. Matthew Coleman is a teacher. Dr. Frank J. Hayden. Oops, my screen is frozen. Go down. Jordy Burton, Dr. Frank J. Hayden Secondary School, Joanne Sandel, and Siobhan Parker, Wendy Judson, and Diane Wharton at Abbey Park High School, Emily McDonald, Sally Pete, Amanda Potter, EA Team at Alexander's Public School, Sharon Manning, Mackenzie Smith Bennett Public School, Gary Greer at Pineland Public School, Kevin Playford, EC Drury, Milton Staff Learning Center, Angela and David Odrowski, Harrison Public School, Angela Franco, Centennial Public School, Veronica Kleinsmith, School Programs, New Street Education Center, Dr. Steve O'Connor. So congratulations to all of them as well. And please do continue to nominate people or organizations who support our students and their achievements. We accept nominations all summer. We accept them all the time, actually, at the hdsb.ca website. I just wanted to ask if Ariel's here. Ariel? Nope. Okay, so just going to, according to our agenda, we have another award presentation, but the individual wasn't able to make it, but she's got quite a background, so I'm just going to read out her information. She is receiving, her name is Ariella Anabe. She's a grade 12 student at Garth Webb, and she's the recipient of the Schulich Leader Scholarship to McMaster University for $100,000. So she was also Garth Webb Student of Excellence recipient this year. She's a special individual. A brief perusal of Ariel's academic record of achievement will indicate that she is an exceptionally gifted student with outstanding critical thinking skills. Ariel's tremendous work ethic and commitment to academic excellence distinguishes her from her peers. While maintaining scholastic excellence, Ariel makes valuable contributions to the life of the school. Some of these contributions include leadership positions with the STEM Club, the Science Fair team, the Science Council, and the HOSA Club. She is a dedicated member of the concert band and a strong competitor in science and engineering fairs. Outside school, Ariel is an air cadet, earned a silver and bronze Duke of Edinburgh Award, and has more than 450 volunteer hours in the community. Most impressively, Ariel is a strikingly mature, resilient, and kind individual who enjoys the respect and admiration of her peers and teachers alike. From the McMaster University website, Ariel is a passionate leader who is highly involved in her school community. She is also the recipient of the $7,500 Dean's Excellence Scholarship at McMaster and a research position. Ariel has represented Canada at the Intel International Science and Engineering Fair for 2 years in a row and has won the NASA Special Award second place prize for her project. She also spent a summer working with machine learning at the Canadian Operations Forces Command, a position she earned through the Hack the North competition. Ariel is a flight commander in the Royal Canadian Air Cadets. She is a writer, clarinetist, cross-country runner, ultimate Frisbee team member, cellist, and a Science Council president. She is also a Sunday school leader where she helps girls to become leaders in their own lives. Ariel is interested in the engineering physics stream at McMaster. So we send out great congratulations to Ariel. Okay, so moving on. We have one delegation this evening. Can I please call Rochelle Pappen up to the front? Good evening, Rochelle. As per our delegation bylaw, you are allowed up to 5 minutes for your presentation, and then I will open up the floor for 5 minutes for questions of clarification. And you are welcome to start anytime. Rochelle?
So I kept saying, remember to turn on your mic. Okay, start again. Good evening, Director Miller, Chair Gabrenz, Senior Administration, Board of Trustees, and guests in the gallery. Thank you for the opportunity to delegate on ERA 102 boundary review. I will be speaking in support of the recommendation, option 3B, and the amendment of the 5 schools included in this boundary review. My support will speak to the equitable distribution of students, resources, programs, and extracurricular activities. Halton District School Board's vision is that every student will explore and enhance their potential, passions, and strengths to thrive as contributing global citizens. Having a vision allows one to dream about something that appears to have no potential of ever happening. Vision without resources and effort makes something happen, will not make something happen. It will die. This is something the Halton District School Board has, resources and effort. Schools with bad reputations can change. We only have to look at the example of Maplehurst Public School. It suffered from a terrible reputation for many years, possibly decades. With the declining enrollment in Aldershot, Maplehurst was changed to a dual-track French immersion English school. The front door was moved to the back of the school, an important factor, and today Maplehurst has become a well-respected school that serves an important population in Aldershot. The 5 schools in this boundary review are unique in their own way. The overcrowding at John T. Tuck has been a topic of discussion for many years. Tecumseh has to be seen to be believed. Ryerson is small but mighty, with the capacity to take on additional programs. Pauline Johnson is an engaging community that seems to be the right size for their student needs. Frontenac has the ability to pick up the slack as they did when the English stream was moved out of Pineland. My concern is staying ahead of the possible school closures when the moratorium on school closures is lifted. Option 3B will increase the student population needed to create a vibrant community. By increasing the student base and promoting the community in the neighborhood, the Halton District School Board will have vibrant, sustainable local schools. This area of Ward 4, south of the QE, has lost 4 elementary schools since the days when there could be a school in every neighborhood. I believe schools in ERA 102 are at the right number to serve the student population in this area. I think that changes that will take place as a result of the director's recommendation, if the trustees vote in support of option 3B, will have immeasurable benefits for years to come. Thank you for your time. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you. And are there any questions at all for the speaker this evening? Trustee Amos?
I just wanted to thank Rochelle for coming out and speaking tonight. She is a community member in that community now and has sat now on both sides of the table, and I think it's a value to hear her perspective from the community side. So thank you for coming out tonight.
Thank you very much for bringing your delegation this evening. It's always great to hear from the community, and it's also great to hear, we often hear where we're doing wrong in delegations. It's wonderful to have a delegation of support. So thank you so much. We have no presentations this evening. And now we're up to the consent agenda items. So I'm going to put a motion on the floor. So be it resolved that the Halton District School Board approve the consent agenda action items and receive the information items for June 19, 2019, moved by Trustee Rochelle, seconded by Trustee Amos. Are there any reports that need to be pulled? If so, please indicate on your slides. Okay, seeing no speakers. We will just go to vote on that. All in favor of accepting the consent agenda? Thank you, and that carries unanimously. Okay, so now we're up to ratification action items. Vice Chair Harrison, do we have any business from private session that requires approval?
Yes, that's okay. Yes, Madam Chair, we do. And I will just need one moment to sort that out. Thank you very much. Okay. Be it resolved that the Halton District School Board approve the resolutions from private session June 19th, 2019, respecting property matters, report 19099, and I so move.
Okay.
Thank you.
Seconded by Trustee Collard. Thank you. Any discussion at all? Seeing none. Trustee Collard. And all those in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, so now we are up to action items for this evening. We have 6 action items for the evening. I'd like to draw your attention to the recommendation for ERA 102 boundaries on page...
Point of order, Chair Gabens.
Did I miss something?
Could we reorder the action items since the trustee for ERA 102 is not present?
I'm sure she would appreciate that. So why don't we put that one... how about we, as she comes in, we might be able to slot it in. Is everybody okay with that? I see nods around the room. Okay. So we'll move on to the next one, which is 422. So I'd like to draw your attention to the multi-year plan facilitation report 19090 on page 18 of your board package. May I have a mover for that? Thank you, Trustee Danielli, seconded by Trustee Garretts. Thank you. So I'm going to read the recommendation so we can discuss it. Be it resolved that the board direct the director to initiate a process to hire an outside stakeholder engagement firm up to a maximum of $50,000 to support consultation with families and the broader community in the development of a new Halton District School Board multi-year plan. Is there any discussion at all? Yes, the list is growing. Okay, Trustee Reynolds.
Thank you. Through the chair, could the director clarify for us what persuaded you that we have not duly consulted with the broader community? What information has influenced you that we need to go out to tender to get an organization to facilitate this?
Through your chair, events to Trustee Reynolds, there's a few factors. In our last multi-year plan consultations, we did consult somewhat with the community, but overall we targeted some community organizations. We targeted some of our staff, including some of our racialized staff to come in. But in the end, we probably consulted. We also sent out a survey, but there was not a lot of uptake on it. We probably consulted with just over 100 people. And Halton is almost 500,000 people strong. In addition, it was Burlington and Oakville heavy. Less from Milton and even fewer from Halton Hills were involved in that consultation process. Given the budget restraints and our fiscal realities, it's a pretty staff-heavy process, and we rely on our research department. And we had 4 people in our research department at that time. We're now down to 1. So we have 1 researcher for the entire board. So this is a common practice around for all boards as well. Or I shouldn't say all boards. Most boards do go to an outside consultant to help us with the consultations with the communities, stakeholders, parent, and we did not a bad job. I think we could do much better with our parent community, but we struggle with community organizations. We struggle with businesses and all sorts, and that's where this company would help us in that process.
Would the director consider potentially, rather than doing one upfront consultation with the community, doing more of a annual check-in? I think it would be valuable to hear from people, but I think it would be more meaningful if we gave them an opportunity to check in a year's time to sort of reflect on what has happened in terms of operations, how we've amended our plans, and how they think we're doing. I think that has a lot of value. I really do want to hear from the community, but I worry that an upfront consultation might be putting the horse before the cart. I think by offering an opportunity for moving forward and then doing a check-in, we might get a more fulsome response or ideas from people.
Through your chair, events to Trustee Reynolds, absolutely. I think that's a great idea. I think we still need to go out to do the initial consultations to help us develop the multi-year plan, but I see I don't see any disadvantage or downside to going back out a year from hence to say, how have we done? What's your perception? We present operational, how we're doing to the board, operational plan from a staff perspective. It certainly would be good data, I think, for trustees to hear from what the community thinks. I'm going to turn it over to Associate Director Bogue for some additional comments.
Yeah, I'd just add to that. We do currently go out to the community once a year with Have Your Say, and this has been a relatively new piece for us. We're in our 3rd year. And the response has been really excellent, in fact. And I would say it's really our community is wanting to provide feedback. So I think doing that consultation up front to help us set the areas of focus is a good idea. And then the ongoing check-in, Trustee Reynolds, I think is a great idea. We likely will be looking at the Have Your Say survey as we go into the new multi-year plan and revising it as well so that it fits with the new multi-year plan. So the questions will be geared exactly to the things that we are looking at and what we are wanting to monitor and measure. So I think it makes good sense.
Trustee Collard.
Thank you. Through you to Director Miller. I keep trying to demote him today. Oh, I hope not. I don't want to go through another process like that. I'm very excited that we're embarking on a new multi-year plan. The political landscape globally and locally has changed tremendously in the last 5 years. And we are now seeing nations that are calling for a crisis situation with the climate and wanting to see movement on that portfolio globally. And I'm hopeful that we will be able to include and incorporate the climate crisis in our multi-year plan, because we are seeing the loss of a lot of valuable programming, not just in our board, but throughout the country, that helps people understand what's happening with the climate and what they can do to stop it. And I think education is the key to that. So I'm very excited to see that this is coming forward, and I support it fully.
Through your chair to bench to Trustee Collard, it would be our intention to include that. I think it is single, if you're to pick one single thing, it's the single most serious threat, and education is the way to address it, I guess, is a way to describe it.
Trustee Gray.
Through you, Chair, to Associate Director Bogue. Just a quick question about the have your say, and further to that, the reaching out. Is the have your say multilingual?
Thanks for that question. Through you, Madam Chair, to the trustee. It is we have an English version of the survey currently, and we have, I believe we've got 6 now different languages, our top languages around the board, that we've got translated versions for as well. And those get translated separately and then entered into the system.
And follow up. So this new process, it'll be multilingual as well, or we'll try our best?
We would certainly want to look at that. How do we reach out, particularly to newcomer families and families where English is not the primary language spoken at home? So that would be the intent, is to try to figure out how do we engage those families, and that would probably be the way to do it.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no more speakers, we're going to go to, there we go. The vote, all those in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. So the director is to initiate the process. Okay, so we are going to move to 4.2.3, which is the external audit and regional internal audit plans. Report 19097 on page 19 of your board package. And Trustee Gray, this is your report. Would someone allow me to move? Or are you going to move your report? Yes, I need a seconder. Trustee Reynolds, thank you. So I'm going to, I understand it would be best to split these, the first paragraph motion on its own, and then the next 2 paragraphs together. Okay, so we'll deal with the first one. Okay, so be it resolved that the Halton District School Board approve the audit plan attached as Appendix A for the fiscal year ending August 31st, 2019, prepared by the board's external auditors, Deloitte LLP. Is there any discussion on this at all? Nope. Okay, so we'll vote on that. All those in favor? That's great. Okay, would you like to move the second motion as well? Seconded by Trustee Reynolds. Be it resolved that the Halton District School Board approve the revised 2018-2019 Regional Internal Audit Plan, which defers the audit of continuing education due to the review of the program by the Associate Director, and be it resolved that the Halton District School Board approve the 2019-2020 Regional Internal Audit Plan, which includes an audit of privacy and information management and follow-up reviews of the Information Technology Vulnerability and Security Assessment, Insurance Program Administration, and Board Partnerships and Sponsorships be approved by the Board of Trustees. Is there any discussion at all? Seeing none. We're going to remove the, is it okay if we remove the last few words that say be approved by the Board of Trustees? Because it does seem kind of weird, felt weird when I was reading it. Okay, I see nods around the room, so we're fine with that. Setting the topic, all those in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, I'd like to draw your attention to 424, 2019-2020 Operating and Capital Budget, Report 19092 on page 38 of your board package. It's moved by...
For the people in the gallery, welcome, firstly and foremostly. Hands up, who's here for the budget? Okay, who's here for the boundary review? Awesome, double, nice. Is there anybody here for another top? I mean, I know everybody's interested in everything, but is there another topic of particular interest at this time? Okay, so it's those two.
The reason we're pausing is we're hoping to hear from when the arrival of Trustee Shuttleworth is going to happen, because because ERA boundary review is her topic.
Yeah. I have been in contact with Trustee Shuttleworth, and she is not yet on the road. Yeah. She's coming from Pineland.
Those of you that are here for the ERA, the trustee for the area is not here at the moment. The next item on the agenda would be the budget, and that could be a pretty long conversation, a long presentation. So I guess the question is, are you prepared to sit through it before you get to ERA? Well, we've got some order. See, there's an order of events. There's a couple other items, but the budget has to be passed before those other items come forward. So we can't move those ones till budget's passed. So it's either ERA without the local trustee, which would be very unusual, because the local trustee, obviously, it's the schools in her area, or we go into a budget conversation. I wonder if there's a way to go into the budget conversation and come.
I think we're going to move forward with the budget. She's at a school event. No problem. We felt badly that we switched the agenda around on you. Yeah, no problem. Okay, so we're going to go on to, yes, thank you. Okay, so I'd like to draw your attention to the budget. Report 19092 on page 38 of your board package. May I have someone to move this? Trustee Collard, seconded by Trustee Rochelle. Thank you very much. So I will read the recommendation. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees approve the 2019-2020 Halton District School Board PSAB operating budget in the amount of $754,956,645, and that the Superintendent of Business Services and Treasurer be authorized to proceed with the expenditure of funds as outlined in Appendix B. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees approve the 2019-2020 Halton District School Board PSAB capital budget in the amount of $64,005,723, and that the Superintendent of Business Services and Treasurer be authorized to proceed with the expenditure of funds as outlined in Appendix C. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees approve the 2019-2020 Deficit Recovery Plan in the amount of $2,508,147, and the Superintendent of Business Services and Treasurer be authorized to action the plan as outlined in Appendix D. Trustee Danielli, you have something to say.
Thank you. Do we need to move to put it on the floor before we open discussion? No. Okay, sorry. I thought we had. I know, I just wanted, through you, Madam Chair, to the Director and probably Superintendent Hunt Gibbons. We know that we have received a great deal of information regarding the Bronte Creek project and the impact on the budget. And I know that we recently received an email about ways to keep the Bronte Creek Park, about putting it in a school for 2 sections within a school with a teacher already associated or familiar with Bronte Creek project, being able to run those. And that was just presented to us yesterday. And so I'm wondering, through you, Madam Chair, possibly through the Director to Superintendent Hunt Gibbons, if we could find out the feasibility of that and what the impact on the budget of that would be.
Through you, Chair of Events, to Trustee Danielli, I'll start, and Associate Director Bogue and Superintendent Hunt Gibbons will probably weigh in as well. The feasibility of doing that at this moment for September is virtually nil, because it would require some real staffing changes. Schools have staffed their schools. Schools are now in the process of handing out timetables to the students. So there would be a lot of consideration around which school, where would it be a regional program? Would it be a local program just for those students? The teacher and the qualifications, teachers have already been assigned their classes. So there's a lot of significant issues that would have to be addressed in order to move it to a school. Having said that, as we have said several times, we will be sitting down to look at what can we do around those elements of the BCP, Bronte Creek project and Trailhead, that we can broaden the breadth of those programs and expose more students to it and so on. So we will be sitting down, and we've offered to meet, and I'm sure they will avail themselves of it, to meet with the Friends of Bronte Creek. So I will turn it to Associate Director Bogue and Superintendent Hunt Gibbons to add any meat on my end.
I think your answer was fairly comprehensive, Director Miller. The only thing I would say is our schools could do that kind of thing within their school buildings right now. You know, they could offer they can combine courses together. They could package them together. They could theme them. So that might be a possibility down the road, but we need the willingness of a keen teacher who's got the qualifications and all those things as well. So for that to happen now this spring when kids have already selected courses, staff have been assigned, would be, as Director Miller said, virtually impossible. But that could be an option somewhere down the line. There are other models out there in the province where programs are run that way. And certainly we've got models like schisms and things like that that are already run within schools. So that could be something to think about down the line. But for September, I can't see how it would happen.
Thank you, through the chair, to Trustee Danielli. The only thing I would also add to that is that the timing, as has been pointed out, is crucial in all of this, as is the funding of the opportunities that go with it. And we've just found out that experiential ed, where much of this would fall under, has now been revisioned, and we are hiring for an experiential education lead, and that is part of what's coming forward for the government. But it's been revisioned, and it's not focused on outdoor education. It's been refocused on career experiences and grades 7 through 12. So it's now very much job shadowing, learning about the various pathways, apprenticeships, and all those other pieces at this point. So again, that would be something we would tie into, and we've just learned that is officially changing.
And I would just emphasize, we have just learned that this week from the Ministry of Education, that the experiential education model, which we have been operating under for some time, included quite a component for outdoor education, has changed. And of course, our responsibility is to implement the will and of the Ministry of Education. So we're Superintendent Hunt-Gibbons and our department are working through that to see what the implications are, but there's a significant change in what experiential education means to shall we say, the current government than the previous government.
Thank you very much. So, but I did hear in that should this budget pass tonight, and this budget does call for the elimination of the Bronte Creek project, you are still going to be open to speaking with the Friends of Bronte Creek and still exploring what you can do within the capacity of the limitations put upon you by the ministry funding.
Through your Chair Gerbents, to Trustee Danielli, absolutely. We will be meeting Associate Director Bogue, myself, Superintendent Hunt-Gibbons, Superintendent Salmini, and the principal for Derry Allen, Andrea Taylor. We will be meeting in the next couple of weeks, and then once we kind of tweak it out, or however you want to characterize it or describe it, we will then send an invitation to them, to the Friends of Bronte Creek, to meet with us, to present what we've kind of come up with, and then what they think and their ideas. So.
Trustee Collard.
Thank you. We've had some concerns with the influx of students with autism that will be coming to our board, and that perhaps we will not be adequately funded to provide for their needs. Today, of course, or yesterday, there was an announcement about the loss of a whole lot of positions at Erin Oak, and I'm wondering what we have in place to ensure that any new students to our board that we're not yet aware of who have these special needs will have their needs met.
Through the chair to Trustee Collard, in the budget there's $700,000 put aside. We haven't designated specifically what resources or roles or other things that we would be spending it on, because the government has yet to announce what the changes in the Ontario Autism Program will look like. So once we hear that announcement and are aware of the impact on families and children in the community, that we'll then know what that impact would be on our system. So at that time, we'd be able to use those dollars appropriately on the resources that are needed to support those students.
Thank you.
And through your Chair Gerbents to Trustee Collard and all trustees, that money is enveloped, which means that that's what it's for. We can't use it for any other purpose.
Well, I'm glad that we have that at the very least. Thank you.
Vice Chair Harrison.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, I have a few questions, I may have to go back on the list again. This is, I think, the 4th or 5th time we've talked about budget and had different presentations and so much material available. Thank you very much for all of that. You know, sometimes in absence of detail from the Ministry of Education, and it hasn't gotten any easier to talk about over all of that time frame. The things that we need to, or that are not being carried forward, I feel it's untenable, really. When I think about Bronte Creek Project, when I think about the innovation coaches and teacher librarians, and you know, the list goes on. So that was a bit self-indulgent just in terms of how I'm feeling about all of this. Are there any additional revenue side options not already in our budget that other boards pursue?
Through you, Vice Chair Harrison, and to you, we're very limited under the Education Act in terms of what revenue sources or other revenue sources we can seek, and mostly it will include the visa fees for international students and the rental of our facilities after hours. We do have those in our budget, but we're always very conservative in our budget in terms of what we project those to be for the following year. So we haven't actually increased the level of those revenues over the current year, but we are actively seeking to increase those sources of revenue through the year. And once that is more certain, it will be reflected hopefully in the revised budget. To what extent, we currently don't know. There's quite a lot of moving pieces, with, especially in particular with international students and the secondary class size and room within certain high schools of choice for those students. So we're working through them, and as information is available, it will be reflected in the revised budget. Outside of those sources of revenue, there really isn't much. There's other ministry, outside of the Ministry of Education, there's other provincial ministries and other federal government grants that we seek, and we actively try to partner to offer our community, for example, the Welcome Center, with funds so that we can be a partner in the community and help with entry points, and then accommodate them through the system. Interest revenue would be the other area. So depending on our cash management or cash flow position, that will fluctuate year to year, and we try to do our best to maximize the interest revenue and minimize interest expense.
Thank you very much. So hopefully something will come through in that regard. And, you know, the ministry is still wrestling, and I'm sure thinking very carefully about all of the comments and input that came back with respect to the class size consultation that just closed recently. So if we do see additional revenues that are not enveloped for a particular purpose, and can be spent on programs, for example, do we have a priority list for reinvestment, i.e., you know, the programs that we're losing at this point in time, would they kind of make that list? That, and I'm not saying in their current state, this is a great opportunity to reimagine things, but is there a sense that those things that are being lost would be near the top of our list for reinvestment?
Through you, Trustee Chair Grevance, to Trustee Vice Chair Harrison, I'm going to turn it over to Associate Director Bogue. School Operations has been working on this for some weeks. In fact, some in anticipation of what was going to come down in the GSNs at the end of April. Prior to that, and then once, of course, we got the information. So they have been working on a kind of priority list with a cut line, so to speak. So I'll turn it over to Associate Director Bogue.
Thanks, Director Miller. Yes, we have looked at a number of different areas, and we have done some prioritizing, and they include areas in special education, support back for our libraries. Research was another area we were concerned about. So should there be any additional revenues or opportunities, we do have a list of items that we would suggest that go back into the budget. In terms of the program areas that are being discontinued, those weren't at the top of our priority list, honestly, when we look at the benefit cost pieces and the number of kids impacted. They weren't at the very top.
Just add, we're not anticipating additional revenues. We may have more growth than we expect in the fall, of course, but that would be providing staffing to address that growth. But we're not anticipating, and I'm looking at Superintendent Nagoy, even though we prioritized, like I said, I've said it, it's the third time I'll have said it, we're not anticipating that we're going to get any additional funds.
Trustee Gray.
Thank you very much, through the chair, to Superintendent of Business Nagoy. And possibly this question may also involve Superintendent Zonfeld. Just a few minutes ago, we heard Superintendent Zonfeld talk about a $700,000, I think, contingency fund for if we had the need to support students, I believe, with autism. I'm not sure if that contingency fund is broader than that. I give the example of a number of years ago, a large number of EAs were added due to the registration of students with high needs. And so my question is, do we have a contingency fund that would support immediate and emerging needs that were not anticipated, notwithstanding this special education needs, but needs of any nature here in this board?
Through the Vice Chair to Trustee Gray, we do have a small contingency of $500,000 in the budget for a budget of $755 million. It is a very small contingency, but at least it is there. There's a lot of moving pieces through the year, and typically as we move through the year, we do go into that contingency to address those emerging needs.
Vice Chair Harrison.
Thank you. So I'm going to be asking these questions on behalf of Trustee Shuttleworth, and it's something that she has asked previously. Has there been any further consideration of maintaining the relationship with the owners of the land used by the Bronny Creek project and using that land to disseminate some of the key aspects of the program across the curriculum for the benefit of programming across schools?
Through you, Chair Drabens, to Vice Chair Al Harrison, there has been no conversations with us and Sidra being the owners of that land. We're also aware that they don't have another tenant at this point, and there's other possibilities around Halton as well. I'll turn it over to Associate Director Bogan.
Our relationship with the Sidra Bean will change, and they may be open to some day use opportunities, those kinds of things. So that's something that we could certainly talk about. But we do have lots of opportunities within our own backyard here in terms of the region of Halton conservation areas and Bronny Creek Provincial Park and Crawford Lake and Rattlesnake, Kelso, and on and on and on. So I think we would be really looking at where are those opportunities for our kids that are close to their local schools, and how do we take advantage of some of those green spaces that are right in our backyard. So forging some partnerships, relationships, and looking at all opportunities within the Halton region, I think, is probably where we would be looking at next.
Go ahead, you're the only one on the list right now.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'm very aware that we're talking about a $750 million budget, which is not nearly enough to do the work that we need to do, in my opinion. So I'm reluctant to be fixating sort of on one topic, but again, on behalf of Trustee Shuttleworth, with respect to Bronny Creek project, one of the things that the group has asked is to somehow to preserve the name. So it's my understanding that the name would not be going anywhere, and that a reimagined something could in fact take on or continue that name. So I would just like clarification on that piece.
Through you, Chair Drabens, to Vice Chair Al Harrison, the answer is yes. There's no reason for us to lose the name when it becomes defunct or anything like that. But we're reimagining what we're doing, so it may be a different name. You know, the Bronte Creek project, and I want to be clear here, is we have a lot bigger board than just Bronte Creek. As Associate Director Bogue has mentioned, the other conservation areas as well, and so on. But it's not a problem, and nor have we any interest in losing the name. We'll keep the name, and if it returns in some form or another, we can easily resurrect the name. That's not really an issue.
Okay, seeing there's no other speakers on the speakers list, I have a couple of questions. So first is I keep hearing that our ratio for secondary is going to be the highest in the province at 24.85 students per teacher. And I also understand, I understand that that's due to growth in our board. And I was just wondering if it could be explained fully how the growth contributes to the higher ratio than any other board.
Yes, thank you. Through the chair to the chair. Firstly, all of the formula that we use to calculate our class size is prescribed by the ministry in regulation in Memo B03. So it's a formula. It's not discretionary, and it's not something that the board or the HR department had any control over. And it's all based on our projected growth, the number of teachers who leave our system, and the number of leaves of absence for a full year that we will have next year. So if the move to 28 to 1 from 22 to 1 would have resulted in 300 fewer teachers in our board, and I'm just using round numbers, that's not our number. And if no teachers left our board, and if we did not grow at all, and there were 0 leaves of absence, our attrition protection from the ministry would have been 300 teachers. We would have kept them all, and we would have received the funding to keep them all. But for every teacher vacancy that is generated by growth or a retirement or resignation or a leave, that's 1 fewer teaching position that must be protected. And that position is therefore lost to us and not replaced. And that's how class sizes rise. So if, again, 300 teachers were surplus to get to 28 to 1, if we had 100 vacancies due to that growth or the leaves or the resignations and retirements, 200 positions would be protected and 100 positions would be lost to the system. Therefore, the same number of students would be served by 100 fewer teachers, thereby raising class size. So the fact that we have growth, our number of protected teachers is fewer, and the number of teachers we have to absorb into our system is greater. So that is why growth is part of that calculation.
So just to clarify, the growth, we can't hire teachers. So we just stuff classrooms with more students.
That's correct. Every teacher who retires, resigns, goes on a leave of absence, or isn't hired due to growth is a vacancy that we cannot replace.
And our vacancy,
is a position lost.
Okay. And in our board, how many vacancies are we looking at?
Well, how many positions were lost to the board?
Yeah, let's start there.
Well, I'm going to ask Superintendent Nagoy if she has the number from the Ministry on Protection.
through the chair and to the chair, if we're looking at the classroom teachers, for secondary classroom teachers, we have 78.5 full-time equivalent positions lost just in the classroom teachers. And there's a number other secondary teachers within special education, library teachers, shift coaches, and ESL. So I don't have the actual subtotal here, but it's closer to about 90 full-time equivalent. For secondary panel, there's lost positions within the elementary panel in terms of library teachers, 24.5, and there's another over 20 more positions in various central positions, math coaches, learning resource teachers, special education resource teachers, and so forth.
So those are positions that are lost in
Positions
the system.
lost.
So more staff, or less staff will be doing the work of all those people that are lost. Yes.
Absolutely, and absorbing growth. We are expecting 812 additional students as compared to the current year. So we're expecting growth year over year, which has to be absorbed by fewer staff, fewer positions. And outside of teaching positions as well, there's a number of central and school-based support positions, system administrators as well, that have been lost as well. The net lost positions are 189 full-time equivalent, which is net. So we've actually reduced 227 positions and added a few for growth. So the net of those two numbers is 189 full-time equivalent lost positions, which could be more in terms of number of staff if they were not full-time based.
Through the chair, just so it's clear for the public, that's 189 fewer people that will be working in our board. So it's fewer positions across the board. That's teaching, support staff, office, corporate staff, and so on. So our numbers have grown to over 65,000 students have grown, but the number of staff has gone down.
So my next question is about redundancies. So I know we've been hearing from all sorts of boards out in the media about teachers and staff that are lost, losing their jobs, becoming redundant to our region. What are our numbers?
Through the chair, in the elementary teaching panel, although we declared 154 teachers potentially redundant to our system, we were able to recall the majority of them last week to permanent positions, and the remainder we anticipate will be recalled by August 31st. So we will not be declaring any of our elementary teachers redundant to the board. In terms of our secondary panel, we again declared 154 teachers potentially redundant, and last week we're able to recall 72 of those teachers fully to their previous FTE, which represents 65.33 FTE positions. 31 of the teachers were partially recalled. So the remainder, we have 31 teachers that are owed 12 FTE positions among them, and they are owed some sections of work, so they were partially recalled. We will have to declare fully redundant 51 of our teachers in the secondary panel. Only 6 of those teachers are full-time. Many are 1 or 2 section teachers. So the FTE that they represent is 25.68 full-time equivalent positions in our system will be fully redundant in secondary. And we hope to, over the course of the next few months and prior to the start of school, recall many more of those teachers to their previous FTE. And those that we are not able to recall, we are hopeful that we will have full year long-term occasional positions to place them in. so that they will have some work with us. But again, those positions themselves are lost to the board.
I'd just like to make a few comments about that. Through you, Chair Drabens, in addition to Executive Officer McFadden's comments around the 51 teachers, that means that we have 51 teachers that had either a full-time or a part-time permanent contract with the board. And so that's 51 people, those names behind those 51 people. And for those unacquainted with the teaching profession, it is very difficult to get permanent positions now. With a 2-year college, you have to go to Teachers College. All the senior team around here, we went to Teachers College for 1 year. It's now a 2-year program. And then with certain regulations and hiring processes that we were required to follow, that meant that many young teachers, young people coming out of Teachers College, were sometimes up to 7 years before they got a permanent position, or at least some permanent sections. A full-time teacher is 6 sections, and many of these 51 may have 1 or 2 sections. But what that is for those young people is a foot in the door. It's a foot into the door to ultimately get the 6 full-time sections and be a full-time teacher on a permanent contract. We also have occasional teachers who work full-time, but they're not permanent. They're not on a permanent contract. Their benefits are different, etc. So I think all the trustees and the senior admin, our heart goes out to those people because it's been a hard slog for them to get those permanent sections. And for some of them, it may feel as though, oh my goodness, I'm starting again. It took me 4, 5 years, 6 years, and I'm not exaggerating, to get 1 permanent section or 2 permanent sections, and now I'm back to square one, and I've got to try to get those permanent sections again. I have every confidence that our Human Resources Department will do their best to support these, and I want to say kids. They're not kids, but they're generally younger teachers. We'll support them in trying to get them full-time work in our board on the occasional lists and any permanent position sections that may come up. But I didn't want to lose sight of that in the grand scheme of things, it's really tough to get a full-time teaching job now. And so, well, I'll leave it at that. You can read between the lines.
Okay, thank you. There are more people on the speakers list. Trustee Gray.
Thank you very much. I think through the chair to the director, I think your comments are well taken. I think the point that you emphasized with regards to the number of fewer teachers in our system is key. I think a lot of people focus on, well, the teachers all get a job back, and eventually some may, and we're very, very hopeful for that, and that would be wonderful for the system. But at the end of the day, there are fewer teachers working with students in our buildings, and the impact of that is yet to be measured. My question is perhaps with regards to we're going to make it through this year. What happens this time next year? What can we anticipate?
I will start, and then I'll turn it to Superintendent Nagoy and perhaps Executive Officer McFadden. Well, we're at 24.85 at secondary level, and elementary moved up by 1 student, I think it is, at the up to 25 in the junior grades. We are expected to move to 28 to 1, so 28 students to 1 teacher. So we are 3 and a bit away from that. So we can anticipate that these challenges are going to be greater next year. At best, they'll be the same. They won't get better. I would add, though, that this is a collective bargaining year. All the unions, their contracts are up as of the end of August, and they will be collectively bargaining with the provincial government, the Ministry of Ed, and perhaps some of these issues will be dealt with there. So I don't know. But at this point in time, based on what the government has said in their budget, I anticipate that this will be the challenge will be greater, and more positions will be lost. So I don't know if Superintendent Nagoy and Executive Officer McFadden add something.
Go for it. Just to add to that, the government is continuing to identify the 4% reduction overall year over year. So whether that means additional changes, in addition to just the class sizes that we currently know that they're working through labor negotiations, there could be other areas that they might tackle. So additional changes we will need to face and challenges next year in order to reach further reductions. That would be my assumption. The consultation is still ongoing, and it could lead to additional class changes for the elementary panel as well. I'm not sure. So there's different areas that are still in the mix. If I had to guess, I would say next year will be a more challenging year because we may be looking at additional reductions in our system, not just class size.
I agree with the comments made by the director in terms of this is a collective bargaining year, and while these changes are through regulation to the Education Act, and they're not in the central bargaining agreement, many local collective agreements contain class size maxima, so it will definitely be a topic that's on the central table and discussed quite widely. For our teachers that have gone through this process this year, as you said, we're hopeful that we will be able to recall them, and that's wonderful. The positions that they occupied will be lost to the system, and we will only be able to recall them due to our growth and our attrition. But they themselves will likely always be at the bottom of the seniority list because we will be hard-pressed to recall them all to permanent positions, much less hire new permanent teachers who would come on below them on the seniority list. So if we continue to shrink our teaching cadre, they will go through this process of being declared potentially redundant, possibly redundant, and recalled, potentially until we reach 28-1. So that could be 1 or 2 or 3 more years.
Vice Chair Harrison.
Sure, thanks. Through you, Madam Chair. It feels like to me some of our personality as a board is we're being required to strip some of that away, like what some of the special things that we've been able to do over the years. And I know there's a strong spirit and sense of innovation here, and hopefully that can bring back some balance. But yeah, it's a very interesting time. So I just wonder about communications around the budget and whether there is a plan to do a press release should the budget pass this night, outlining, some of the considerations that went in and where we landed and why we had to do some of the things that it feels like we have to do, because I feel like there's still an opportunity should the community feel disheartened by what this budget process brought to continue to have input in other areas. So the question is, what communications are planned? Thanks.
I'll take that question through the chair to Vice Chair Harrison. Our communications department, following the approval of the budget, hopefully this evening, will be developing a news release to send out to our communities to highlight in a very broad way some of the important pieces and considerations that have come up throughout the discussions. And I know in speaking with some of my counterparts in other school boards, several of which are also having their board meetings this evening with budget on the agenda, that similar things will be occurring at their boards as well.
Well, there's no one else on the speakers list, and I would just, I would like to just have a basic outline of what the impacts are for our schools and students and program.
Through you, Chair Drabens, and to you, Chair Drabens, and all trustees, some of the impact is, well, I would say virtually almost all of the impact is unknown at this time. And we will not really have an accurate picture of the impact of this budget until, and I would hesitate to even say the fall. I would say, you know, perhaps after a year or during the school year as school operations looks at the operational plan and where we are, and business operations looks at where we are on the corporate side. But I would preface these, well, I'm not prefacing them because I'm saying them now after the fact, but I would have prefaced the remarks with, I have every confidence in the professionalism and the expertise of our staff. They've been shown time and time again to work with kids, and that's not just teachers in the classroom, that's EAs, that's our secretarial staffs in the buildings, that's the corporate side. We've had challenges before, and what they have done every time is done their utmost to mitigate the impact on students and to support students and to serve students best they can. There's no question we are saddened by the loss of perhaps some programs. Tonight was an Inspire Award to a teacher librarian who's clearly done fantastic work with the kids, and you know, that's going to be decreased. But I am confident that we'll mitigate many of the things. But I have to be honest, there'll be some things we don't do. There'll be some things not done in schools. There'll be things that, well, the Bronte Creek project, which we've talked about a lot tonight, has to find another way. We have to find another way to deliver those elements of the Bronte Creek project. Will there be an impact on co-curriculars and extracurriculars? I don't anticipate it, but I think at the secondary level in particular, with teachers having more students in their classroom, they're human beings and they'll have more marking. More students in the classroom means more marking, more pupil-teacher contacts, more perhaps issues that maybe they'll have an impact on it. We're not hearing from our federation partners that their teachers are not going to do any of these things. We're not hearing any of that, and we're not hearing that from either the elementary or secondary panel. And I guess I go back to the very first comment I said. Our staff has shown themselves to be professional and caring. There's an empathetic staff, and they'll go the extra mile, and they've always done, and they always will, and they will continue to do it. So your question's a difficult one to answer because we don't know the impact. There will be an impact, but we will also be doing our best. Well, should I say we, our staffs, will be doing their best to mitigate those impacts so that kids are well served. And I guess their parents too, right?
So there are no more speakers on the speakers list.
Can I make one comment, though? I think it's
Yes.
something that I would like to make before trustees vote. I would ask Superintendent Nagoy to highlight something about this budget that's very unusual for this board. We've said it before, but I think it's important that we talk about and the recovery plan. So I'll turn it over to Superintendent Nagoy.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. Just as a quick summary, the board we're asking the Board of Trustees to pass an operating budget for $754 million, almost $755 million, which is $8.3 million lower than the current year budget, yet 1.3% higher in terms of growth and students. We have lost $22 million in revenue due to the new education reform and the changes in funding, and we have made conscious decisions to reduce $25 million in costs Of course, those are netted off by the growth that is required and the costs that come with the growth for our system. In having said that, trustees are required to approve a deficit budget. We're not balanced. We're in a deficit position of $2.5 million. And Appendix D in the report outlines the deficit recovery plan, which the board is now required to approve. In the past, the Education Act stipulated that a board can be passing a deficit budget within 1% of the provincial allocation. And in our case, that 1% currently would be around the $6.7, $6.8 million mark. So a deficit under that amount did not require any approval by the board or the ministry. For next year, and this is a new, just currently, the Board of Trustees has to approve a recovery plan within 2 years to mitigate and eliminate any deficit, even under the 1% of the provincial allocation. So the $2.5 million is outlined in Appendix D of the board report, and it outlines also the plan to eliminate the deficit. 1.1 million of that is in relation to the payout for the, or the paid down, I should say, of the retirement gratuities, and it's going to be amortized over 2 years, and so therefore it is within the 2-year time frame. Committed capital and sinking fund for an additional $558,000 that's creating a deficit. Those are funds put aside, so those are reserves that have been put aside as we were required to in order to bring back into revenue over the life of the assets on which we spend that money, so capital expenditures. So that isn't going to be approved within 2 years. It's going to be, it's not going to be eliminated within 2 years. It's going to be eliminated over the life of the assets that created that. And there is an $816,000 deficit that is made up of one-time items and retainment of staff that is beyond the attrition numbers. And we are planning to eliminate that within the year as retirements come in. Those positions are not replaced. Actually, we've had one since our last board meeting. That position will not be replaced if it has been identified on the recovery plan until we meet our target, and the one-time expenses won't be occurring the following year. So I just wanted to draw your attention to the deficit plan, which is one of the motions that you are asked to approve tonight. And thank you very much to the Board of Trustees for all the effort and time committed to the budget. It has been a challenging year, and you have been very engaged, and you have asked all the wonderful questions in terms of trying to find alternatives and make sure that the budget has the less amount or the minimal impact to our system, our students, our staff, our school communities. There's a lot of changes in this year, and we'll keep an eye on the impacts and trying to mitigate that for the system as the year unfolds. But I just wanted to thank the Board of Trustees as well for your support for this process.
Thank you. You've generated a couple more speakers to the speakers list. So, Vice Chair Al Harrison.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, what are the risks with respect to not achieving deficit elimination over the required 2-year period of time? And secondly, given that there's still a lot of moving parts, what's your report back cycle? When's the next time we check in terms of how things are unfolding?
That's an excellent question through the chair. I do believe there is going to be some sort of ministry review and audit in terms of how boards are performing in terms of eliminating any deficit plans that they may have. So there will be a ministry requests to see our progress towards it. We do have a responsibility to eliminate the deficit within the time frame within the 2 years time frame that the regulation will stipulate. And I think we have a good plan in terms of the fact that we are keeping an eye on the one-time expenses and also the staffing identified through future retirements that are being identified. I don't see a concern in achieving the deficit elimination timelines. We are going to come back mid-December with the revised estimates budget when we have better information. The students are now in their seats. We know exactly what the growth is expected to be. We'll know a little bit more about the autism funding, about the challenges that we may have that in the system come September and October. So once we have the revised estimates budget, we will have a clear picture where we are in terms of a financial position and in terms of working towards the deficit, and we will provide trustees with an update at that time.
Through Chair Drabant's Vice Chair Al Harrison, we will not be the only board in the province with a deficit budget this year. I don't have the numbers, but in my conversations with other directors, I think several boards will be doing the same.
I don't know if that's comforting or not. Anyways, Trustee Amos.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you to Superintendent Ngoy and actually all of our superintendents for all the hard work they put in to making this such a, it was a very difficult time, and I've been a trustee since 2000s, and we've never had a deficit before. And so this is a very unusual and difficult situation, especially as the lowest funded board in the province. It's kind of concerning, and I think it's something that we're going to have to make sure that our community is aware of. But I want to say a very special thank you to all of you and to the Board of Trustees, because I think this has been a very difficult time, and we've had to be very wise and careful in our decisions, and nothing about this is easy. We still want to do the best we can for all students, and that's going to be a little more difficult, but we're tightening our belts, and we're still going to do the best we can for everyone. I would also like to thank everyone in the Business Services Department for all of their hard work. So Controller Sweetman and Heather, and to Carrie, and to Allison, who I believe is leaving us, and we're going to miss greatly, and Sonia as well, I'm sorry. There's probably some others that I haven't missed, but I just wanted to say thank you so much for everyone help to make this a document that I believe that we can live with, but not happily. So thank you.
So again, excellent work. We really appreciate all the work that has happened. And Allison, we're sad to see, you go. But awesome on moving on to your next step in your journey. So we're going to now vote. Okay. All those in favor of passing this budget? That carries unanimously. Oh. Do you want to put your hand up? Because the vote's actually ended. Okay, so that does carry unanimously. Thank you very much. That budget has passed. Okay, so go ahead, Director Miller.
Through you, Chair Drabant, I want to thank all the trustees. This has been a most arduous and difficult process for all of you, and we appreciate the support that you've given us, the senior team, and by supporting the senior team, you're supporting the entire board and our students. And I know that many of you are not particularly pleased with this budget, but you've done your duty. You've done your duty. You understand the challenges of this. So I want to, on behalf of the senior team, thank you all for what you've done. I also want to thank the senior team. Many don't know this, but we started working on a budgeting process as we anticipated what might be happening in November of last year, which is about 2 months earlier than, and we had many long and difficult meetings and many long and difficult, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it, arguments around what we would put in front of the trustees. This was a very difficult process for the senior team, and I want to thank all of them for their work. And I guess I would say that many of us around the table are very ambivalent about this budget. There are things in there that we wish we did not have to have presented to the trustees. So I'll leave it at that without being specific. Finally, I want to thank Controller Sweetman, Sonia Clayton, Heather Tomastro, the entire business services team, and Roxana Nagoy, our superintendent, who joined us in February and hit the ground running on a budget process that we had been working on for a couple of months. So under her leadership, I want to thank Roxana. But especially, I want to thank our retiring business person tonight. Allison, thank you for all your work and everything you've done to contribute to the success of this board. Thank you, Allison.
Okay, so that chapter is closed for the moment, and I'm sure I speak for every trustee around this table. Thank you for all the hard work at the senior level. I know those discussions were difficult, and there were a lot of really hard decisions to make. And we appreciate you always putting the students first. So we are going to go back in our agenda now to the first item in our action items, and that would be ERA 102 Boundaries, Report 19087 on page 13 of the board package. Trustee Shuttleworth, would you like to move that? May I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Trustee Collard. Okay, great. So I will read the recommendation and then we'll open it up for discussion. Be it resolved that the Halton District School Board adjust the boundaries for the elementary schools in ERA 102 and 103 as outlined in option 3B and detailed in report 19087 effective September 2020. So we still have a year out. Hold on one second. Is there any discussion at all? Trustee Shuttleworth.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I'm fully in support of the boundary decision that's been made. I know that change is hard. I went to the Tecumseh barbecue, which was 2 weeks ago, and it was just amazing to see the spirit and excitement that goes on at that school. I know it will benefit greatly from this boundary review, so I'm looking forward to working with the superintendents in ensuring that the transition for all students is as seamless and as successful as possible. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Well, we've had 2 delegations that have been positive towards the recommendation, and I have to say that I was impressed that I didn't receive a single email regarding this a boundary review. Being the chair, I usually receive something. So kudos to the hard work that went in on this. Obviously, you've addressed all the questions and concerns to a great extent that people aren't pushing back. So thank you very much for all the work that's gone on for this. So having no more speakers, we will vote on this boundary review. Oops. All those in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Of course, you can make a comment.
Thank you. Through your chair, events to I want to thank, again, I did it last week, but I want to thank the Boundary Review Committee, parents that have stepped forward in a very difficult process. Boundary reviews are never easy, so we really appreciate them taking, they're busy people, leading busy lives, and yet they care that much about the Halton District School Board, and in particular the schools and the kids. So we really appreciate the Boundary Review Committee for their work. I want to especially thank Superintendent Truffin and Trustee Gray for their leadership of the Boundary Review Committee. And finally, Superintendent Pennyfather for his leading the Boundary Review Steering Committee. Thank you, all of you, for your work. Boundary reviews are never easy, even though at the end it appeared a little easy, but we know that it was far less easy than it's come across. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. So now we're moving on to the next item. Number 425, Operational Plan 2019-2020, Report 19053 on page 47 of your board package. Associate Director Bogue is heading this report. Who would like to move this item? Thank you, Trustee Danielli, seconded by Trustee Garrett. Thank you very much. And the recommendation is, be it resolved that the Halton District School Board approve the operational plan for 2019-2020, be it resolved that the Halton District School Board approve the operational plan for 2019-20 as outlined in Report 19053. Is there any discussion at all? ViceChair Harrison.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. There are a couple of things in here that it seems to me were impacted by the budget, such as experiential education opportunities, both specific and system-wide, will expand. I'm not sure that we are in a position to do that at this moment, but I look forward to Associate Director Bogue's response. And then the other thing that's listed in here are our innovation coaches, which I believe were also not carried forward. So and I may not have picked up on everything, so I just wonder what the plan is with respect to those things and whether we should be approving this as amended after a kind of a look through with respect to the budget overlay.
Thanks for that question, Trustee Harrison. Through you, Madam Chair, to all trustees. The point is a good one. This plan was developed back in February, shared first with trustees in March, end of March, and that was prior to final recommendations coming forward to the budget. So there are some areas in here. Trustees are aware that we have fewer central staff, we have fewer dollars for professional development. So there will be some areas that will need to be adjusted or tweaked a little bit. We didn't want to get in there and start to change this significantly because this is what was shared with trustees in March and we didn't receive any additional feedback. We're committed around these areas. They are all part of our strategy to meet our multi-year plan goals. So we're committed to the areas, and we know we've got talented administrators and teacher leaders in schools that will help pick up some of this work as well. There will be some tweakings on the how, the scope and depth might change a little bit. But the meat of this report will not change. So it's up to trustees as to what you'd like us to do with this. But I would say we could tweak some of these, but it won't change substantially.
Through you, Madam Chair, and I look to other trustees, I guess, for your opinion on this. But, you know, if we don't have innovation coaches, I don't think they should be listed in here because it provides, to me, it's a false pretense that it's something that we can actually do. And as we build understanding in our communities, I don't know how many people read this, let's say that. However, I don't know.
To Chair of Events, to Trustee Harrison, and Superintendent Newton obviously is in charge of that portfolio. We have allocated some funds to Superintendent Newton to carry on innovation. So the coaches for sure will not be the same format that it was this year because those positions are gone. But there may still be an opportunity to coaching, and then with revised estimates, we may have an opportunity to add additional funds. So I would suggest to not make any or very many changes or minimize them until we see how this rolls out in the fall, because Superintendent Newton's going to obviously have to figure out how is she going to spend these funds, and some of that may be release time for coaches. I don't know, and I'm not trying to tell Superintendent Newton how it should be done, but I just think it's clearly going to change. But
I just want to clarify, I want these things in there, but I want us to be able to do them, that's all.
Go ahead, Superintendent Hunt-Gibbons.
Through the chair to the group, and as well knowing that we were looking at some upcoming changes, we worked carefully. Like, program is very much going to be supporting Superintendent Newton. The work that's been started is very important. In fact, when we posted the 6 cross-curricular secondary positions, we wrote innovation directly into the job description, and we have committed to work with her so that this does continue. It is part of the multi-year plan and the operational plan. And much like Associate Director Bogue has said, some things will be changing as they are reimagined. But they will exist in some form moving forward because they are an important part of this multi-year plan. And so I think innovation is a good example of that.
Okay, Trustee Garretts.
Through you, Chair, to Vice Chair Harrison, sorry. I, too, am struggling with this a little. I have written all over here, budget question mark, you know, where are we getting the staff on this, et cetera. So I'm, to be honest, I'm struggling with this a little bit as well. We can't magically, I mean, we've heard all night, we can't magically get money from the sky, and we can't magically get more staff. So some of this stuff, like, how is it going to happen? You know, I have questions with whom, budget, it's all, that's all I've written on across here, so I'm a bit worried.
I would say that the sentiments were discussed at our senior table as well, but I think people are committed to sort of working through how this will look. For example, in the Superintendent Hunt-Gibbons has talked about the secondary program department. There's half of the IPLs there, and those jobs have been recrafted and reimagined. So I think this is going to take us some time to really understand how this work is reimagined as well. I would agree with Vice Chair Harrison's comment around whether something might expand or not. I think that's a question mark for sure. I would agree that there might be some positions listed in here that don't exist in their current forms, but I would still go back to saying we're still committed to this work. And so if we've said professional development opportunities will be provided in X, Y, and Z, those things will continue to happen. And what they may look different. Than this year, it might have been a big pullout that cost a lot of money. Next year, it might be opportunities after school, or there might be opportunities on a PD day, or there might be opportunities where we've coached our administrators to say, you know, this is really important for our teachers or our EAs to learn. Can you work this into a staff meeting? So things will look different, and they don't, and all things don't take the same amount of money, and we may not go into the same depth, but we're still committed to these actions. So we could go back and relook at some of these things and try to tweak them, but I think it's going to be a bit of a work in progress as we see how things unfold this year.
Trustee Gray.
Thank you very much, through the chair, to the Associate Director. Of all of the key strategies listed in our multi-year plan, and we're coming to our last year of that multi-year plan, what of these goals might be the most impacted by the budget that we have just approved tonight?
Trustee Amos.
Well,
guess just to reword it, what are we going to struggle the most with amongst all of these goals, given the budget that was just passed?
I don't think there's any one area that we're going to struggle more than the other. We're 3 years into a multi-year plan. We've done lots of capacity building. There's some momentum out there, I think, that will help us into this last year. Had this been our first year in our multi-year plan, I think it would have been a little bit of a different story. There are some areas that haven't been really impacted that much by budget, but other areas where it involves professional development, certainly that's an area that will look different next year for us because of less central staff and less money. But I would say the advantage is we're into the last year of the plan, and so I'll give you an example. The work we've done around mathematics and students with learning disabilities, the foundation has been laid there. So people have had some training, have had opportunities to try that work in their classrooms, and hopefully that work has got some momentum that it will continue to run. Would we like to push it even harder next year? We would for sure. And the reality is that we may not be able to, but I think the foundation is there. So I don't think there's any one area that's really in jeopardy here.
Just to follow up, we have in our goals, many of them are stated to, we're looking for increases of certain percentage and so on and so forth. I'm wondering if it would be important for us to take stock of where we are right now, because I guess a year from now, I want to be asking at this table, have we slipped backwards? Have we slipped back on all of the, as you call it, the momentum, the great things that have been happening, the improvements that we've made for 3 years? Have we slipped backwards because of our financial position? So I'm wondering if benchmarks could be created so that we've got that, it's as of today, this is where we stand, this is where we were 3 years ago, this is where we got to a year from now. What will that look like?
Thanks for that question. Through you, Madam Chair, to Trustee Gray and to all trustees. We have that data. We reported that back in the fall for the first 2 years. And so it would be our plan that when we do the report back in October again, would be our next scheduled report back on this year. We'll have that data. And then we'll have to figure out what does that look like mid-year next year to see what that impact is, because we won't have had a full cycle of next year again. But I think interim, while we're into the conversations around the new multi-year plan, we'll have to see what data is available so that we can see where we've slid, where we're still making progress, and what our needs are as we move into that next multi-year plan.
ViceChair Harrison.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, I was going to also ask about just what our interim check-in plan looks like. And one of my concerns is that, we hear at the provincial level performance-based, that funding and funds and pay is going to be performance-based, and operational plans have numbers attached to them. And so I just want to, the question's been asked and you've answered it already, that you are comfortable with what's in here, that this is attainable, because if it feels like too much of a stretch, I'm worried about our risk at this point in time in this particular climate with all of the talk about performance-based management and so on.
Was there a question in there? And maybe while you're thinking about whether there was a question, I just want to clarify, because I don't want to misrepresent. Our attainment on the targets that we set 3 years ago on our multi-year plan, that's one story, because I would say some of our targets were very lofty and would have been very difficult to achieve. Whether we've made progress, however, through building capacity, that's another story. And so I think there's a couple of pieces at play.
You answered my question. Thank you very much.
Okay, there are no more speakers on the speakers list, so we will hunt down the item. Nope. There it is. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much, Associate Director Bogue, and everybody involved. Okay, I'd like to draw your attention to number 426, Special Education Plan, report number 19041 on page 55 of your board package. This is presented by Superintendent Zonnefeld. May I have a mover? Trustee Gray, seconder, Trustee Shuttleworth. Thank you very much. And I will read the recommendation. Be it resolved that the Halton District School Board approve the Special Education Plan 2019-2020. Well, I guess I don't have to say contingent on the approval of the 2019-2020 budget. So we'll just cut it off right at 2019-2020. Is there, hold on a second. Oh, as appended to the report. Okay. I'm going to reset the, Trustee Collard, I'm just going to reset this and you can put yourself back on the list. Thank you very much. Okay, and you can go right ahead and talk.
Thank you. Thank you for this report. I have reviewed the changes. They are small and not overly arduous on spec ed. I did note that you say in the report that this was supported by SEAC members. I was wondering if it was unanimous, and if it was not unanimous, we'll be receiving a minority report.
Through the chair to Trustee Collard, this did go to SEAC 2 weeks ago at their June meeting, and there were, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting how many votes. We had 2 votes not supporting and the rest supported it. So I think it was maybe 7-2. I have to look at the numbers. So the one non-supporting vote was from the Learning Disabilities Association of Halton, and the other was from a member at large. So the Learning Disabilities Association has said that they would submit a minority report to which the chair of the board would later submit a response, and both of those would be included in the appendices with the report.
Thank you. Did they outline their reasons for not supporting the plan?
LDAH did, and was echoed by the member at large. And I guess the short version would be that LDAH would like to see in their opinion, a more comprehensive assessment and support plan for students with learning disabilities from K to 12. So, and they have historically not supported the plan for a long time for a variety of reasons, and that was the reason they gave this year.
Thank you.
Okay, Trustee Shuttleworth.
Thank you. Through the chair to Superintendent Zonnefeld. Now, my question is, you just shed light on the fact that this has been a recurring dissension from LDAH within the board as far as supporting the plans going forward. What my question is, and I'm not sure if this is a question to ask, is if there has always been concern from this group, is there a way that we as trustees, and furthermore at the SEAC level, are able to find some way to gain their support? Like, is there a way that we can be doing something so that maybe next time around they'll say, well, yes, this is better?
Through the chair to, thank you, Trustee Shuttleworth. So I would, for trustees, if you're looking for my suggestion, it would certainly be to engage in dialogue with them and be listening to their suggestions and advice and concerns, recognizing that all the planning, the structures, the programs, et cetera, that are within the plan, that the plan articulates, are the work of staff. So, I guess I would encourage that trustees, don't feel that they're compelled to respond specifically to the concerns of an association when that work is really specifically the work of staff, right? It's operational in nature. So we engage the associations, depending on the work that's at the table at the time, we engage in discussions with them many times throughout the year. I met with the two LDH reps 2 weeks ago with respect to an upcoming report and hearing their input. And we did talk about the plan as well at the time. And so we work with them to hear those concerns. Sometimes what they're asking for we can do, and so we work to achieve that. Sometimes we can't in terms of resources or other structures within our system that make that difficult. Sometimes we agree to disagree because they might think that what we're doing is not at the standard that they might like, and yet we feel that it's quite adequate for our students. So, but I want to assure you that that dialogue is ongoing, and they bring a lot of valuable expertise to the table, to the discussion that we listen to. We seek their input, and so that's ongoing. The concerns that they've expressed in the past have changed. They're not always the same year to year. Sometimes it's because we've done some work in the area that they're concerned about. Other times other things have changed. So I guess I want to assure you that it's not an ongoing concern necessarily all the time, and that dialogue is ongoing, and to assure you that staff are engaged in that.
Through your Chair Bench to Trustee Shuttleworth, just to add to Superintendent Zonnefeld's comments, this is not uncommon in the province, where there's a minority report from the Learning Disabilities Association. So it's a challenge all around.
So thank you. Through the chair to you, Director Miller. I understand that, but I'm just trying to think that if this is an ongoing problem that's happening year upon year, not only with this board, but with other boards, is there some way that we can, as you're saying, some of the times we do things that support what they're asking. So in that, is there a way to highlight where we have gone the way that they've wanted us to go, so that they're, because being on SEAC and listening to the LDAH not approve this report, there wasn't a lot of comfort in her voice and seeing that we had done something. So it would be nice to be able to see that there are some areas where we do gain. That's kind of the roundabout what I'm trying to say. Thank you.
We Chair Bench, Trustee Shuttleworth. Yeah, we can look at that and then highlight those areas for the Board of Trustees to say, here's what we've done per their request. I mean, it's too late for this particular one, but moving ahead.
If I may, through the chair again, and actually that does occur because the association submits their minority report letter or report, and the chair then responds to that letter. So I usually support the chair in the drafting of that letter, and so within that letter are responses to those concerns and highlighting the things that the board is doing in a number of those areas of the concerns that they've raised. So it does get highlighted there and included with the report.
Okay, thank you. We have no more speakers on the speakers list, so we will move to voting on the special education plan. All those in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, we are now up to communications to the board. First off is item 5.1, student trustee reports. Trustee Meng, it's your final evening.
I know, right? It's my final evening, but hopefully it goes well. So yes, so it's only myself as Trustee Clark is not in Canada. So there's not much to say except for, well, there's two things. So first of all, to everyone writing exams in the coming days, good luck. And yeah. And the second thing, which is probably the final thing I'll say at a board meeting, is a special thank you to everyone. So thank you very much to everyone who has helped myself and Trustee Clark, so including my student trustee mentors, Trustee Shuttleworth, and Trustee Danielli, all trustees, the staff, the student senate, and finally Trustee Clark himself for everything that that you have all done for this entire year. So this year has been one of my best years so far, and it has been filled with such fun and excitement, and I am very thankful to have received this experience. The role of student trustee has opened myself to many different experiences, and I've had the opportunity to have met such outstanding people from around Ontario. As I leave the board office for most likely the very last time, I wish everyone the best of luck for the years to come, and I hope that we, the Halton District School Board, can continue to ensure that each of our students will continue to receive a world-class education. So that's all.
Thank you very much. Not surprisingly, we have a speakers list. So, Trustee Danielli.
Sorry, I saw somebody else on the list first. Very, very briefly, because we have discussed this, I just wanted to say once again, it's been an honor and a privilege to work with you, and I have been incredibly grateful for the opportunity to work with and to know you this year, Kevin. You've made amazing strides since September, and the impact of your student trusteeship will go on long after you're gone. So thank you so very, very much for everything you've done, and just for the pleasure of being able to work with you. I have truly appreciated it.
Trustee Shuttleworth.
Thank you, through the chair, to Trustee Meng. Thank you again. I'm just mirroring Trustee Danielli's comments. It's been a pleasure to work with the two of you both throughout the first year as mine of trustee. So I wish you all the best on your move on to Western, which is great because that's my alma mater.
Director Miller.
Through your chair, events to Trustee Meng. I'm not going to say thank you because everybody else has said thank you. I'm just going to say I look forward to reading about what you accomplish and how well you do in life, because I think that's a certainty. You're a fine young man, and I think you've got a really, really bright future ahead of you. And I look forward to seeing how that plays out. It'll play out well, I can tell you. But you do have an issue you need to address. The soccer team you support should. But I know it's not the team I support, so that's all that matters.
And Trustee Meng, I just wanted to say thank you so much for your passion for education. It takes a lot to stand up and put your name forward to become a student trustee, and then to carry forward. It's a lot of extra work that you've put on your plate over the past year, and you've really put a lot into it. We've seen your work come through the Student Senate and through your consultation that you did, and we appreciated the support during our consultation and the letter you wrote as well to the minister. Excellent work all year, and I concur with Director Miller. We're expecting big things out of you, so please check in. Okay, so we're going to move on to action items for September 4th. That feels so weird to say, 2019. We have two, I believe. The first is number 421, Board Committee's Governance Procedure Amendment, Report 19102, on page 56 of the board package. Trustee Collard, you are on this report.
Thank you. Yes, I'm bringing forward an amendment we discussed at Committee of the Whole last week to include our acknowledgement of the land at committee meetings, including Committee of the Whole, Special Education Advisory Committee, Audit Committee, and Parent Involvement Committee. And I would like to entertain a motion to suspend the rules to deal with this tonight, because it's very timely that this week we also celebrate National Indigenous Peoples Day on Friday, and I would like to be able to honor that day in a small way.
Okay, we have a motion on the table to suspend the rules. May I have a seconder, please? Trustee Garretts, thank you. Is there any discussion on suspending the rules? Seeing none. And all those in favor of suspending the rules? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. We'll deal with it this evening. So I assume you're going to move. I need a seconder for this motion. Trustee Shuttleworth, great. Okay, the recommendation is, be it resolved that the board committee's governance procedure be amended to include the acknowledgement of the land as outlined in report 19102. Is there any discussion on that motion at all this evening? Seeing none. All those in favor? The machine blipped for a second. And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Excellent. Okay, on to the next one, which is number 522, Capital Priorities, Report 19103, on page 58 of the board package. Superintendent Ngoy and General Manager Ronzella, welcome to the table.
Thank you. And through the chair, we wanted to present trustees with a report that identifies capital priorities for the upcoming or the expected upcoming capital submission. The last capital priority submission that was released by the ministry was in the summer of 2017. With the current release of the grants for student needs, it was mentioned that a new round of capital priority submission was about to be released. So we expected to be coming shortly. And in preparation for that, staff have prepared a report that summarizes in Table 1 and 2 the projects that have been submitted. It's part of the August 2017 submission and the child care programs as well, and what has been what received approval and what has not. The report also outlines in Table 5 8 capital priorities that staff recommend we put forward in the next capital submission. If history does repeat itself, it could be coming through the summer, and therefore this report is in front of trustees currently for action at the next board meeting, but we wanted trustees to be aware of some of the priorities that we would want to put forward, and that staff will start working on the business cases in anticipation of the memo being released.
Director Miller?
Through Chair Drabant's to all trustees. Superintendent Ngoy's last comment about this could occur in the summer. If you'll recall, last summer the EDC issue was during the summer as well. We'd want to be prepared, hopefully, prior to September 4th, if the ministry was to issue it prior to September. So I leave it with trustees to determine how we do that, but.
Okay, Trustee Amos.
Thank you. I was going to ask if we should waive the rules tonight, and it sounds like we probably should. So I would like to make a motion to waive the rules to be able to put this motion on the table tonight so that if we get that opportunity, we can have it approved already.
Excellent. Okay, so we have a motion. I need a seconder. Seconder, Trustee Reynolds. Thank you very much. Is there any discussion at all on waiving the rules? No. Okay. So we will vote. Suspending the rules. I think I've got the right report there. Yes. Okay. All those in favor of suspending the rules to deal with this issue this evening? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay. Going back to the speaker, I'm going to put this on the table. Actually, I need a mover to put this on the table. Trustee Amos, and seconded by Trustee Reynolds. Okay, so I'm going to read it with my glasses on. Okay. Be it resolved that the Halton District School Board approve the projects as identified in report 19101-03 to be submitted to the Ministry of Education as part of the next request for capital priorities. Okay, so there are speakers on the speakers list. Trustee Danielli.
Thank you very much. And I'm just curious because I know that back in 2017, Brookville was identified as a capital priority submission. And then after that, it dropped off the list, and I'm just curious because I've been to Brookville and I didn't see that it got significantly better. So it's a great school. It's a wonderful little country school, but it was on the list for a reason, and I was wondering why it's never reappeared, I guess.
I will answer the first part, and then Superintendent Puccetti will answer in greater detail. At that time, based on the FCI, Brookville and Robert Little.
Sorry, could you define FCI for anyone watching who might not know?
Facility Condition Index. It's in the report. It's a rating of replacement on the total cost of replacement of equipment and systems over a 5-year period. So at that time, Brookville had a one of the higher FCI ratings relative to the schools on the list, and subsequently, based on this most recent go-around and update of information, it's kind of dropped down, and some other schools have kind of come up on top. So I don't know if Superintendent Puccetti would like to respond even in further detail.
Thank you. Just to add to that, in terms of the top 25 highest FCI, Facility Condition Index, Brookville is not currently on that based on the 5-year FCI. So in those years, we probably have done some work, and then there have been other inspections that have taken place where under the ministry inspection, the FCI was updated, which has risen higher than what we had at Brookville.
Thank you for that clarification. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair Harrison.
Thank you very much. Through you, Madam Chair, just with respect to the FCI again, did we draw the line based on the particular FCI threshold or by number of projects that we thought were feasible? Because I know that there are a couple of schools in Southwest Oakville that their FCIs currently breach 40% as well. They're sitting at 42 and 43% respectively from what's posted on the ministry website. So they would, and I'm sure the same holds true for all of the wards and areas. There's a bunch that aren't far behind.
We're assuming that the ministry is going to request 8 projects. So we maintain that list. We have 8. And so Superintendent Puccetti and myself looked at those projects and basically kind of went down the list from the highest, and we kind of knocked off those 4 particular projects included in that list. I do want to say, notwithstanding anything else, relative, this is compared to other schools in the province, whether or not we're going to get any funding is highly debatable. But if you don't ask, you don't receive. And so we are including those. So generally speaking, we just kind of went down the list and kind of knocked them off based on prior. And unfortunately, we can go down to 20 if we had that opportunity. But I don't know what the ministry is going to ask moving forward. So we just use the 8 that was requested 2 years ago in this go round.
And typically in this board, they really haven't drawn beyond 3 in approvals. Yeah, I know we've had the odd 4, but it's usually 3-ish. So.
Okay, Trustee Reynolds.
Thank you. Well, I certainly appreciate that you put forth this proposal and that we're moving forward with it. My question is actually regarding Do we have any intel? Because I noticed that we did have a number of schools that did not qualify for funding approval. Do we get any feedback or intel on why that is the case? And is that factored into the applications moving forward?
Typically, they really kind of say, no, you don't meet the criteria. And a lot of it has to do, if you look at the list that was submitted last time, some of them were, two of the projects were the FCI replacement schools, and their comment was, no, they're okay, they don't need replacing. And of course, there's a function of in our discussions with the ministry, and a good example is Northeast Oakville number 1 high school. They felt that there wasn't enough students to warrant the construction of that school, a 1,200 pupil place school at that time. With respect to Burlington Central, the general commentary was a fair amount of money was given to the MMR and Nelson renovations, and they probably felt at that time that Burlington Central really, the renovations proposed in that submission was, negligible in their opinion. So I think that's generally the thought process. Again, we're being compared to other boards in terms of their needs. So, and I think when they looked at the PAR schools, i.e. Nelson, MMR, and somewhat Burlington Central, they felt they wanted to focus their funds on those two larger projects, because the amount that we asked for Burlington Central is about $2.25 million, and they were for renovations of some existing classrooms at the school.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Since you brought it up, I would just ask for clarification for the public's information that Burlington Central, who was denied the funding approval for this, actually has, we have done considerable renovations at the school, and I would just like to you to maybe speak to some of the things that have happened, notwithstanding that this funding approval hasn't happened, but that we funded it, I believe, under other funding envelopes, close the gap. But I just thought to make people more comfortable in reading this report, that they see that we have actually intentionally invested in this particular school.
To you, Trustee Reynolds, we have approved to date approximately $4.8 million towards Burlington Central High School. That includes the air conditioning and the elevator funded under Close the Gap, but it also includes some of the renewal work that we're doing. So, for example, we're going to be starting this summer a refurbishment of the gymnasiums, which, as you know, have a tremendous amount of community use as well. So I think that'll be a welcome. We've done washroom renovations. We've upgraded the library in terms of finishes. It looks like a brand new library. So we have been investing in that building through school renewal, Close the Gap, and yeah.
Okay, seeing that there's no more speakers on the speakers list, I have a question. It's about Alton Village Public School, and we put an addition on that school, a 5 classroom addition. I believe it was 5 classrooms. A few years back, and so now on the list I see that we are asking for another addition, and I was just wondering if there is any concern at all that down the road we will have a huge school and not enough kids to fill it.
If you look at the enrollments at the school over the next 10 years, it will continue to be over 912 kids, I think 30 kids by year 10, 2028. And as trustees recall, we did do a boundary change and moved existing areas of development within the Alton Village community to other schools outside that area. So not only would we, with the addition, provides an opportunity to accommodate and remove the portables that are at the school site, but more importantly, eventually, potentially bring back some of those new developments back into the fold of the community. Again, there is no guarantee we're going to get the school, the addition, but I did want to point out that when in speaking with facility services, we felt that a 5-room addition was easily done at the school. It didn't impact on the school itself, because we're just adding a second floor, so it would be easily done and less impactful on the school. And the school would be able to accommodate it.
Okay, thank you. So there are no other speakers for this evening, so we're going to move to vote. All those in favor of accepting this recommendation? And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, so we have one information item for this evening, number 531, board reports, report number 19104 on page 63 of the board package. Vice Chair Harrison, you're listed as the person bringing this report. Would you like to speak to it?
Sure. Thank you very much. Briefly and through you, Madam Chair, I think we've seen 2 examples this night of suspending the rules, and current practice is that all action items come to the board table twice, no matter what the subject matter is. And in the spirit of ongoing improvement, we trustees requested the director to bring a list of reports that could possibly be considered for approval on the first night that they're presented, with the understanding that trustees always have the opportunity to defer approval to a subsequent meeting should more time, public interest, or questions arise. So this is currently, it's a practice that we have. So this would be changing practice. And so this report reflects the outcomes of the Committee of the Whole meeting. I'd just like to make a note that subsequently it's been identified by Superintendent Ngoy that financial statements, they're currently reflected in the deferred column, but they should be reflected in the immediate column because that is our current practice given kind of how the timelines with respect to the ministry line up. So that one would shift over. And that is the report. I've had some discussion with Manager Gortmaker just about how we can make this information public and sort of at our fingertips so we can be reminded if the case may be. So I think with your blessing, we would pursue. So we can make this chart available on the website and available to ourselves. And Gail was also mentioning that we could perhaps reflect it in our schedule of reports as well. So yeah, to link those 2 pieces together. So does that sound okay to everyone? Awesome. Are there any questions related to this? It's really our collective work and with Director Miller and. Okay, so thank you very much. Onward, and hopefully we will find ourselves not suspending the rules as many times as we have been. Go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you. I was just wondering if you could elaborate. I'm in support of this. I'm really actually pleased with what reports were chosen for immediate and deferred. It makes a lot of sense, and I appreciate this. I'm just wondering for our sake and for the public's sake on the particular report, how will we know if it is, how will we remind people? What's our strategy in informing people whether this is a 1E or a 2E, meaning it's only going to come once or twice. Just because I think it's important, because our practice right now is 2 times to the board table unless we seek to suspend the rules. I'm just wondering, in terms of an ongoing proactive way, how are we going to identify that?
Director Miller?
Through your chair, events to Trustee Reynolds and all trustees, we'll indicate that on the board report schedule by the date that it would be approved. So if it's a 1E, as you call them, we'd have the date that it appears and the date that approval, that vote, whether it's approved or not, but whether it's voted, would be the same date. If it's a toonie or toozy, whatever you called it, doozy, then the date would be 2 weeks later. So we'll indicate that on the board report schedule. Does that align with?
I was going to, in addition, say that it'll also appear on the agendas for approval and for.
Follow-up, please. Yeah, I just wanted to be clear with people that it is not coming twice, so that people are aware. There is, like, for example, if there's somebody who would like to delegate, it's going to show once if it's a 1E. So just giving them a heads up that they have to have their ducks in the row if they want to speak to it, because I see this as it's just different. It's a different practice now, and until we have, I want to say, public being aware of it. I mean, I'm sure it's not going to be an issue, but I know that people will want to know. So I think we will around the table, but just so that we are respectful to those who perhaps don't tune into this meeting this evening and read this particular report, that they understand this switch.
If you'll recall, we bring the board report schedule several times through the year. So, and it's in the agenda package. So, you know, the community will still have the opportunity at various times. I don't know how frequently we bring it. We bring it every month. We bring it every month. So every month they'll see that board report schedule in there.
And I also wonder whether that could be pulled out separately and posted somewhere, just so that's available as a standalone. Yeah, thanks.
Just a second point is when we have the senior staff look at the board schedule, they specifically thought that the ones they identified as single night ones were not necessarily things that would be delegated. So that's kind of a mitigating factor. Okay. So we are up to notices of motion. Are there any notices of motion? It's like we're clearing the docket just about tonight, which is nice. Okay, director's report.
Thank you, Chair Drabentz. I have 2 items for tonight. The first one I'll turn to Superintendent Etoff on the days of significance.
And to the trustees, I sent you an email earlier this evening that you can review when you get a chance. It's an important document that we've developed. We've always managed and indicated days of significance based on faith and creed as part of our board calendar. However, the feedback often particularly from our schools when they're trying to plan in an inclusive way, is that there's an awful lot of dates, and which ones are the more critical dates that they really need to be mindful of in their planning. So this document's been developed with that in mind, looking at many of our colleagues across other local boards, looking at what they've developed, and putting that together, and also putting it out not just for the following year, but trying to go out a little bit further than that, because we know with some of the planning that goes on in the board that sometimes we need to plan further out. So hopefully this will be helpful, and the intention is that we are trying to avoid these dates. We know that there may be occasions where that's not possible, but really in keeping in mind and trying to make sure that everyone who needs to be included and can be included, that we use these dates in order to make sure that we're planning in an inclusive manner.
Thanks, Superintendent Etoff. And I think it's important very important that the board make sure they look at it, because we have been criticized in the past of having a board meeting on the night of, in particular, was Yom Kippur. We had one. I think we need to make sure that if we need to move a board meeting, that we get that up and notice about that. That was the second item I have is Superintendent Pennyfather and I had a wonderful occasion this morning. I guess it was this morning, and I'll let John describe what we did.
Thanks, Director Miller. Through the chair to the trustees. Today was a great day. We signed an MOU with the Rick Hansen School Foundation, and they offer in-school presentations and resources for administrators, teachers, and students. What they can offer to us is the Rick Hansen ambassadors who showcase their personal stories. Will go into schools and talk about the challenges they've faced. They have various toolkits in English and French that raise students' awareness about the potential of persons with disabilities. There's a difference maker program that inspires and recognize students who make a difference in their school and communities in terms of disabilities and supporting an inclusive environment. And there's also lesson plans that they provided. And it's taken some time to bring them on board, and that's because we've involved our program departments and our equity department. So we want to make sure that this kind of thing is a really good fit for the board. And so we're very excited, and we hope to see lots of this organization in the schools next year. And they're raring to go, so it's going to be great.
I would just add that I think one of the real intangibles of signing this MOU with the Rick Hansen Foundation is raising the profile of these incredible people that have these real great challenges, physical challenges in life and so on. We have to change the dial a wee bit in society. We've been inundated with and obsessed with the Toronto Raptors over the last wee while, and it's been a fantastic run. It's brought the city alive and brought all of Southern Ontario alive, in fact, the whole country. But this morning, I wonder if any of you knew that Canada's Paralympic basketball team defeated Argentina in a game. And I'll bet you there's not a single person around this table that knows that. And we need to know those things. We need to celebrate those as much as we celebrate the Toronto Raptors and those other ones. So this is an intangible that our MOU with the Rick Hansen Foundation. And it's not just about sports. It's about all sorts of inspirational stories of people that have overcome tremendous challenges. So thank you. No, I'm done.
Okay, then. So we're up to communications from the chair. So this being our last board meeting of the school year, I wanted to just say a few things. To all our students and staff, thank you for all your hard work this year. I hope that it was meaningful for you, and I hope that at times it was also fun and rewarding. We wish all secondary students beginning their exams this week well on their exams, and good luck and high hopes for all of those moving on and out of our system, be it to the community, workplace, college, or university. We hope that we've instilled many of the values reflected on the boards behind me, and hope that you have been able to explore and enhance your potential, passions, and strengths while in our system. It's now up to you to become a contributing global citizen. We expect great things. This year has been a time of change at the board, and it continues next year with 189 fewer positions in the board come September, as the first of 4 years of cuts in class size average increases. And come 2020, we will see mandatory e-learning we'll see mandatory e-learning in our high schools. I have to say that I'm personally upset. I'm sure every trustee around this table feels a similar way. This is why I ask every person watching this video to take a moment and write your MPP and tell them how you feel. If you see MPPs at your local community events, engage with them. Tell them how you feel, whether it be good or bad. They need to know, because this province says that it's for the people and that it's listening, but we have to do our job and give them something to listen to. So your voice is strong, and please use it. I'd like everybody to have a great summer. Thank you. We're up to committee reports. Are there any committee reports? Thank you, Trustee Amos.
Thank you. I was at the mental health committee meeting this week or last week. I can't remember which it was. There's been so much going on. But one of the things that was presented at the meeting was an exciting pilot project that's going to be expanding next year. It's called HDSB Kids Have Stress Tool, and it was piloted in 6 high schools: Robert Bateman, Craig Kielberger, Dr. Frank Hayden, White Oaks, Gary Allen, and Garth Webb. And there were about 200 participants with a varying target audience. And it was basically about helping teach students how to deal with stress. And it was done by staff who facilitated it, and it is something that will be put out to all high schools next year for the school year. I'll send you out the little blip that I got about it, but it sounds like a very exciting thing, because I think, as we all know, that mental health is I think, one of the crises of our times right now, and not just adults, but students are dealing with it as well. So, thank you.
Trustee Gray.
Really quickly, the PIC committee met last week and consolidated a lot of their planning for the PIC conference, which is coming up on October the 19th. And so ask all parents and trustees and others interested in attending to mark that on their calendar. It looks like a wonderful lineup of guest speakers and workshops, one of which is actually being supported by the Board of Trustees. And so I think it's going to be a wonderful opportunity for us to engage in lots of authentic learning and new opportunities to share the great things that are happening in this board. So October the 19th.
Great. Okay,
Can I make a comment?
Sure, Director.
Tweak my head. I just have a quick comment around the Human Rights Symposium. Although we haven't finalized, there's a lot of details we haven't finalized. We are in the process of just working out the details. It's a deal, but working out the details of one of the keynote speakers, who will be Stephen Lewis. So.
Okay, that's great news. So we're up to trustee questions and comments. Trustee Gray.
Thank you very much. When we talk about banner years and stellar weeks and all the rest of it, I think up in the hills this week it's been a stellar week. It was kicked off with the awarding of the one of the 2 Susan Milson Awards to Paco Eldridge at Acton District High School. Later that same day, there was a presentation by Director Miller, Superintendent Podjaberic, and Chair Gerbentz to the Halton Town Council. And myself in presence, yes. And in that presentation, highlights included the community use of school partnerships, the nutrition programs before and after school, facility upgrades that the board has supported in all of our Halton Hills schools, a review of how our current working relationship exists. We even talked about the Halton Hills Inspire Awards and all the wonderful teachers who have been able to receive that award in Halton Hills, speaking to the excellence of teaching that we have in our schools. We talked about the international students, and most importantly, we talked about the challenges ahead and the opportunities and needs that we have. And I think Chair Gerbentz her presentation focused on the importance to strike a very positive and protective working relationship. So I would like to thank all of the folks that came up to the town of Halton Hills and made that presentation. I think the questions coming from the counselors in the town included questions on vaping, our welcome center, safety in our schools, traffic around our schools, and what we're doing to mitigate some parking and traffic issues. And so all in all, it was recognized that it was a one and first ever time that the Halton District School Board has appeared at the Town Council of Halton Hills to make a presentation. And I think that it bodes well for our continuing and strengthening of our relationship with the town of Halton Hills. And I would like to strongly recommend other trustees to consider it for their own town councils to have such a presentation, because it was impactful, and I think we will reap the benefits going forward. So thank you very much. I also just want to conclude by saying, with 31 seconds left, but very importantly, on the very next day, on Tuesday, we had the chance to open up the Town of Halton Hills Youth Center, which is now going to be housed at Gary Allen, and it's a brand new opportunity for the youth of Halton Hills to come together, to have their own space, previously in the basement of a local church, but now their own space in the Gary Allen Center, to come together, to share and chillax and share ideas, talk about employment, talk about mental health issues, and to be resourced as a community of young people in our town. So again, we're very, very grateful. It's a need that's recognized and will be appreciated by the folks in Halton Hills. So thank you very much.
Has been a busy week out there. Just to let people know, our presentation was video voice recorded as part of their meeting, so if anybody wants to view it, they just go to the Town of Halton Hills website. Okay, Vice Chair Al Harrison.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Three things. Firstly, I am happily participating on the Halton Learning Foundation Benefit Bash Committee again this year. So the event is in November, and I'll be reaching out to everybody to see whether you know of any potential silent auction donors in your communities. And secondly, if there's a trustee or trustees that would like to join me on that committee, you're more than welcome. Please get in touch. It's once a month between now and November. It's a lot of fun. Rock Your Locks, you'll recall that it's happened twice before, and during those two events in Oakville, 250 hair donations towards making wigs for people who suffer from hair loss disease such as alopecia or related to cancer treatments are created through those hair donations. And a third event is being planned for Tuesday, March 31st, 2020, if you can imagine. So, as the saying goes, let's get growing. And this year, it's going to be open to families from around the whole board. So, that's kind of cool. And lastly, I visited the Faculty Art Show, which is taking place June 10th to August 22nd at Oakville Town Hall. And there's a lot of talent. So, if you're in the neighborhood, please stop in and check out what our staff are doing. It's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Trustee Collard.
Thank you. Through you to Superintendent Etoff. At the last board meeting, I asked if there were any provisions that might be put into place for schools that are experiencing a later start time. And you said you would be able to get back to me, and I know that you have something to report, so I was hoping you would report that in public session.
Yes, I can absolutely do that through the chair to Trustee Collard. On behalf of the director, the team of superintendents reviewed a number of the schools that are experiencing changes to their bell times, reached out to those schools to see what sort of potential impact that may have to parents and the community at large. We came back with generally a pretty neutral tone. However, there were a couple of schools that indicated that this might be a challenge for them during this period of transition. And as a result, we've committed to provide some additional student supervisor support to those particular sites so that they can, over the course of the coming year, open up that morning window of time to provide a little bit of additional supervision over a longer block of time. And hopefully that the upcoming year will give families an opportunity to readjust and make necessary plans as we look at phasing out that support at the end of next year.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that for all staff. I know that it's a tight budget, but we have to look after our families too, and I appreciate that very much.
Okay, there are no more speakers on the speakers list. We have may I have a motion to adjourn? There you go, Trustee Gray, seconded by Trustee Amos. Thank you. Is there any discussion at all on adjourning? No, I'm really surprised by that. I think we might have to do it by hand, because I don't think so, because we don't usually do it. Oh, you did leave it on there. Okay, so all those in favor of adjourning for the summer. School's up for... Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We'll see you in September. I know, we'll see most people tomorrow, but